Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today I'm doing a video that I actually am super passionate about, and it's a video that was not necessarily a video request on my Discord, but it was something that was brought up on my Discord, and it was basically someone asked me, like, what do I do to avoid burnout and things like that, and it made me really consider that question, right? And because it's something that I don't consciously think about, it's something I've done over the years, and it's just a routine that I get into, I guess. And so it made me consciously think about that question. And when I did, I realized it's a very helpful topic to bring up, right? Because burnout can lead to a lot of problems. And so I'm breaking this video down into 3 parts. If you guys don't know, this is kind of how I'm doing my videos now. Not all of them will be 3 parts, but basically the one on YouTube will be entry-level type topic, and then we'll take that topic and we'll take it more advanced on the Patreon and do an advanced level. And sometimes we'll do a third, which will be in this case, it'll be entry-level people in their career, mid-tier level people in their career, and then senior level people in their career. So if you are mid-tier or senior level in your career, check out the Patreon videos. That's where the kind of add-on to this video will be. This video will still help, but a lot of this you'll probably have identified by now in your career about yourself. So let's go ahead and get started. Sorry for that long intro. Now, first things first, this video is specifically for people like students, people in entry-level positions, those types of things, because the stressors and the burnout are very different when you're in that stage of your career than you are in a more advanced level in your career. The first thing I want to talk about is students and entry-level people, is that it may feel like right now you're super stressed, or you're getting burnt out on things like schoolwork or finals, or tasks that your boss are giving you, or whatever, right? Tickets, whatever you're doing. But the reality is, and this is a tough reality for some people, you're in the least stressful part of your career by far, right? And I'm not saying that to say, like, just deal with it, right? No, you have a valid reason to be burnt out and to have, anxiety about it and be stressed out about it. But understand that it's only going to get harder as you go up. So that's one thing that's a realization that people have to come to. And it's tough to come to that, right? But the higher you go in your career, the more responsibility and stress and things will be added to it, which leads to faster burnout. So the first thing I want to talk about with that is, what is burnout? Because some people don't identify it, and that's really kind of where it all starts, right? Identifying it is the biggest thing. So burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. So if you've been studying your butt off for a year or 2 years, and then you're taking a help desk job and you're just getting beat with tickets all day, and you're just excessive or just continuously getting this stress on you, right? You're going to start seeing negative side effects unless you do something about it. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about. And you can see burnout produces productivity and saps your energy. I said produces, it reduces. This is true. You'll start to see over time, really, really good people are doing great, and they start to dip, and they start to go down, and they just start to be less productive. They start to be less responsible. They start to be less reliable. And it's typically from burnout. They're sick of it, right? Here is the kind of the signs. Are you on the road to burnout? You may be on the road to burnout if every day's a bad day, right? This happens, and this is geared towards cybersecurity, but look at this. This is mental health, stress, burnout. This is not for cybersecurity. This is just burnout in general. So understand, no matter what career you're in or what you're doing, this can help you. So the first thing is every day a bad day? Are you waking up every day, you're going, I got to do this today, right? Every day you're going to work, you're miserable. If that's happening, you're probably getting burnt out. Now, I'm going to talk about the other ones, but one thing I want to bring up right now is, if you're in this stage of your career, if you're in that entry-level stage, you're in a very unique opportunity to switch careers. And I'm not saying that because I think you're not smart enough, because you're not capable, because whatever, but someone said something, or I read something on Reddit the other day, and it said something like, why is cybersecurity the only profession you have to be passionate about? And what they were saying in the whole article was about how everyone they talk to in a high level position in cybersecurity says you need to be passionate. You need to be passionate. And they're saying Why is no other career like that? Why do you have to be passionate to be good at it or to be successful? This is why. Because there's so many people getting into cybersecurity, and it's such a puzzle that it interests so many people that if you're not passionate about it, there are people that are, right? It's kind of like you wanting to go be a doctor, and you're going to go through all that schooling and everything, but you don't actually want to be a doctor. You don't actually care about it. You're just like, yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good career, right? If you don't want to be a doctor, it's going to make your job or your life miserable trying to get there, right? A lot of people think they want to be in cybersecurity until they get into it, and then they're like, this isn't what I thought. I don't really like this, whatever. When you're in this stage of your career, it's not too late. I promise you, I switched careers at a late time. It is not too late to switch careers. Take that and genuinely evaluate. And I say that because I know 90% of people watching this probably won't be honest with themselves if they're in that stage. But maybe one person will, and they'll say, yeah, that was a smart idea. But that's where I was when I switched into cybersecurity, right? I was in a place where I wasn't happy with what I was doing, and I knew I was passionate about this, but at the time, cybersecurity was not a job the way it is now, and I switched, right? I took a risk, right? And I've never been happier about it. But you're in a stage in your career where you can do that now, and it won't affect a lot, right? So take that into consideration, seriously think about it, and decide, is this for you? Because the reason cybersecurity you have to be passionate about to be very successful is because there's so many people doing it right now. And there's so many people doing it that if you're not passionate, you're going to get passed. You're going to miss opportunities. And it's not because you're not a good worker, not because you have a good work ethic. You're never going to work as hard as somebody that's truly in love with what they're doing. You just can't. You can't compete with that because every day they're happy to be there. Every day they want to be there. You don't want to. So understand that. So now back to the road. Caring about your work or home life seems like a total waste of energy. This is one you see a lot. You get to a point where now the home life I can't speak on, but the caring about work, you get to a point where you go, okay, I really don't care if this gets done. Like whatever. If it gets done, it gets done, right? That is a sign of burnout. You're getting to the point of like, I don't have any ownership. I don't care about this. If you're starting to see this, these are the signs that, hey, I'm getting there. I'm getting to burnout. You don't want to do that. You're exhausted all the time, right? Majority of your day spent on tasks you find either mind-numbing or overwhelming. You feel like nothing you do makes a difference or is appreciated. So one thing I'll say, and I had a stat up here. Mind you, I've recorded this video like 2 or 3 times, and it's corrupted or something's happened. So I've had the stat up here, but I can't find it now. And it was something like they asked people in IT what if their senior level managers contribute to their burnout and stress. And 50% said yes, the senior level management does. And I wanted to talk about that for a second because I'm in a senior level position, and those senior level positions, I even add stress to my team. And I know that. Do I want to? Not necessarily. Could I be better about it? Probably. Right? And I understand that. And it's something that I have to reflect on and I have to take into consideration and evaluate. But also, there's a certain level in this career that you're going to have to add stress if you're a senior level person, because if you're not meeting an expectation, I can't just go, hey, I know you're not meeting this expectation. I have to have that expectation because this is a career, like I just said, where if you're not meeting that expectation, there's 500 people waiting for that opportunity to meet that expectation. So it's a tough thing to navigate because it's a business at the end of the day. And if I want to be the best at the business, you have to make those hard decisions. You have to say, hey, this guy doesn't want to be here, right? And burnout leads to what typically happens is you start to get burnout, you start to drop. Well, then what? Then if you're already getting stress added onto you from your boss, he's now pushing harder because he's like, your productivity is going down when I'm telling you need to go up, and it just goes snowballs. And the next thing you know, you're out of a job because you quit or you got fired. So we're trying to fix that. We're trying to stop that. And we're going to talk about kind of here's some of the physical signs. This will be in the link in the description. So if you guys want to read more about it. But I think most of us know what burnout is at this point. I'm not going to dive too deep on the physical signs for that. But Mentally exhausted is a big one, especially in cyber. So this one talks about feeling empty and all that, but the mental exhaustion is a big one because I can't tell you, especially early in my career, how many times I was mentally exhausted, meaning I literally had nothing left. I would come into work my tail off, learn as much as I can, come home, study my butt off, right? And over years, it got to a point of like I said, mental exhaustion. I would go to bed and I just didn't have anything else to think. I couldn't do anymore, right? And that led me to where I am. I'm very happy I did that, but there's things I could have done to take some of that burnout off, right? So burnout versus depression, it's very difficult to tell apart, but some of them can overlap. So you can go through this, but you can see burnout and depression are different because depression is medically diagnosed. Sometimes I'm not a doctor by any means, but I think there's chemicals in the brain and all that stuff. Burnout is just continuous stress on you. It's just getting to a point where you just are done, right? Caused by external stressors, right? You can see here depression is genetic and things like that. It's more of a mental or a brain thing and less of you can fix the situation right away, right? May not have energy for hobbies. You may not find interest in hobbies. That's depression, right? It's just a little different. So here's the big thing. We're going to go through the stages of burnout because I want to talk about the stages and then how each stage we can prevent that from progressing to the next stage, right? So the honeymoon phase, right? This is the phase that really, I don't really agree that this is a stage of burnout, but I understand what they're saying. They're saying it, how it progresses. But stage one is the honeymoon phase. You get a job, you get a new class, you get something, you're loving it. You're like, hey, this is an awesome whatever. And you're feeling great, right? You're ready to accept a new responsibility. You're eager to prove yourself. You're coming in, you're going boom, 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 let's go. This is where I see a lot of people start their burnout. Now, this itself is not burnout, but this is where it starts. And what I see people get into these excitements and they overexert themselves, meaning they start grabbing every task they can. They say their boss is saying, hey, I need someone to do this. I need someone to do this. And they're like, I'll do it. And then they are in a class and they're like, what can I do extra? They're at home studying. They're doing all this stuff and it's so fun. But the problem is you're overwhelming yourself. For one, you can't process the information you're really getting, because there's too much information. Your brain can only intake so much. For two, you're going to get to a point where you can no longer maintain that, and now you have all this responsibility that you've done, right? I've done this myself. I've done this on a lot of things, right? I've done this on some of the courses I've built, where I've built the course. I've been super excited. I'm like, hey, it's going to be released on this date. And I get to a point where I'm like, I have too much other stuff going on. I can't work on something has to give. And that ends up having to give and the date gets pushed back. And that's me in that honeymoon stage going, I'm so excited, because I get excited and I'm so excited. And then it slowly gets to a point of, okay, the excitement's gone and now I have all this stuff. So that's one of the big things that I see is right here. If you're realistic with your expectations, so take what you know about yourself, because everybody has different work paces and things like that, what you know about yourself, and say, this is what I'm capable of. Set boundaries with yourself, right? This is what I'm going to do because I know in the long term, this is what's best for me. And when your boss says, hey, I need someone to do all this stuff, go to them and be honest, communicate, right? Go to your professor. Say, I'm interested in all of this. I want to do something with all of this, but I understand this is a career, not a job. And I need to get to a point where I can do this every day in and out. So I want to help with all of this. Here's what I realistically think I can do. Keep in mind your professor, your manager, they've been in this job for a long time, typically. They can help you. Tell them. Yeah, you might have a jerk as a boss or a jerk as a professor that won't help you, but for the majority of them, they try, right? And you say, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to do all of this, but I also don't want to burn myself out or get overwhelmed or have too much responsibility. What do you think I should do? Right? I'm so interested in this and I'm passionate and I want to be here and I want to help. But what do you think is realistically what I'm capable of? Meaning you've done this a long time. You know what's a realistic timeline and things for these projects. What do you think? I'd like to do all of them. Do you think that's possible? right? Have that conversation. It's a tough conversation, especially if it's a new boss, but you got to do that here before it progresses. Then we go to stage 2, which is the stress onset, right? As the stress of your new responsibilities begin to take its toll, you start to neglect your self-care. This is where you start to see people that used to work out, used to go on walks, used to do all this stuff. Now they have all these responsibilities that they've just been given because they hopped in like a bat out of hell. And next thing you know, they're not sleeping because they're staying up working on stuff through the night. They're working 12-hour days because they want to, because they think they have this responsibility, right? And understand this all trickles, because what happens is I see a lot is, especially with salary employees, they might work 12-hour days because they're like, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. But they're not clocking their time or something. No, the manager's not sitting there going, he works 48 hours this week. I got to cut him back, right? And when that happens, you can very easily start working 12-hour days for a long time and not realize you're doing it. And your manager's not going to say, stop doing it, right? Because they're sitting there going, man, this guy's getting all his work done. They're killing it. I've seen people, and this is crazy, but I've seen people in the medical field that will go in and work without getting paid, meaning they're clocking out, but they're finishing work. They're going to continue working because they didn't finish what they needed and they don't want to fail, right? Does that mean that person's a bad person? No. Does that mean that person deserves to be fired? No. That means that person cares so much about their job that they're willing to sacrifice their own mental health. And guess what? That's where burnout comes in. When you start avoid or neglecting your self-care, I'm a person, I know exactly, I'm old enough now, right? I've done this a long time. I know exactly how much sleep I need. I know exactly, how much I need to work out to feel better about myself. When I feel down, I know I need to go work out, right? I know exactly how far I can run comfortably and still lift. I know exactly when I'm starting to get dehydrated, right? These are all self-care needs that you have to consciously do. I've done it. I've gone to the gym with, only drinking a little bit of water and saying, okay, I can tell I'm not strong today. I need to drink more water. Oh, I've drank too much water. I don't have electrolytes. Like, you got to do that stuff. You've got to find what works for you. What's your balance, right? That all starts at the entry-level position. And I know this sounds crazy because I'm talking about like working out and stuff, but if you're not relieving that stress, then you're going to struggle. That's just reality. So then anxiety shows up, you start getting irritable, headache and fatigue, you become less productive. This is typically where you start to see the diminishing part, right? This is where you're starting to really see, okay, this person's now arguing with people, person's not focused, they're not really doing what they should. All right, so, and you can see this is where you become less productive, have a hard time focusing. This is where you kind of start to see right here, the try to avoid making decisions. You see people kind of start to run from their problems here, right? And I say run because the reality is they do feel like crap. So like, it's not like they're hiding, right? They really do feel crappy because they got headaches, they got fatigue, they're all this other stuff. They're irritable, but they start calling in sick. They start doing all these different things, right? This is where you can start nipping it in the bud because you're starting to notice those symptoms, which means it's time to nip this in the bud. Talk to your manager, talk to your professor, tell your professor straight up, your manager straight up, here's where I'm at. Something has to give because my mental health has to, right? Now, hopefully you have a good enough manager or a good enough professor or whatever that they're honest with you, because there's sometimes, this is where the tough conversation can start. There's sometimes, and I've had these conversations and it sucks. It really does. But there's sometimes where you just genuinely have to look at somebody and say, this just isn't for you. And it's not an insult. It doesn't mean you can't cut it. It means you're going to struggle your whole life in this career because you're already at the entry level point where it's not very hard. And I say that not being mean, but comparatively, and you're struggling with this. But on the flip side of that, if you actually are being overworked, meaning like you go to them and you say, hey, I've been working 12 hours, and they might say, whoa, I didn't know you were working 12 hours. I didn't know you were doing all this. That shouldn't happen. That means maybe they look around and they go, well, Joe Schmo over here and Timmy need to pick up their slack because you're actually killing it, but you're doing all their work, right? This is where those conversations have to happen, because if you're honest about it, if you're, hopefully you'll have a good enough professor and manager where you can have that conversation with them. Talk to your family at this point. Talk to people with experience. Find a mentor, right? Find someone in the industry and explain what's going on. And try really hard here. This is where it gets difficult, but try really hard to not be biased to yourself, right? Try to look at yourself from the outside and say, is this an honest assessment? Because I see a lot of times people say, well, I work really hard, which is probably true. But then you look and they're working 12 hours, but they're accomplishing very little. And that's one of those things. If you're working 12 hours, but you're accomplishing almost next to nothing, it's not that you're not working hard. It's that whatever you're doing isn't working. Some of your processes, you're not actually genuinely doing what you think you're doing, whatever. And I've seen a lot of cases where people genuinely are working hard. They're sitting there for 12 hours, busting their butt, but nothing's getting done. And it's because they're afraid to make decisions. They're like, they think they've got something, and then they're like, I'm not confident in that answer, so I'm going to keep doing it over here. And they just spiral. And it can get really bad. And that's where you got to nip it in the bud. You've got to start right here. And I'll tell you, again, with working out and all that stuff, there's a lot to it. And it's not just working out. It's building your mental health. That is working out, whether that's just going on a walk, right? You have to get outside, right? And I'm not a psychologist or mental health expert or anything, but maybe you need to talk to a mental health expert, right? Maybe that'll help you. You need to have a good work-life balance. You need to, some people start getting anxious, and we'll talk about that in stage 3, but you need to kind of start prioritizing learning, not being perfect. And what I mean by that is, instead of that, I'm afraid to make a decision, stick to it, finish it, and then learn from it. Oh, I could have done this a little bit better, right? Do those things instead of simply going, I'm too nervous to make a decision. Start making decisions. Keeping promises to yourself. That's a big one, right? Start saying, I'm going to get up in the morning and go to the gym. I'm going to get up in the morning and eat healthier, right? I see a lot of people, especially in IT, eating poorly, sitting at their desk all day. That is a recipe for disaster. That's not what the human body's for, right? Then you got to take it a step further. You got to work or communicate with people. I see people sit at a computer all day, especially in cyber, and never talk to somebody. Well, of course you're miserable. You've got to have some sort of social interaction. Yeah, you might be an introvert. That's great. But not talking to anybody is a bad existence. You've got to do something, right? Now we get to stage 3, which is this is where you're starting to get cynical and apathetic, meaning you're starting to get to a point where you're just mad. You're just angry. You're just negative. Every time you ask something, they're like, boo, you suck, right? And it just gets to a point where nothing you do or nothing anyone does for you is going to help you at this point, because you're not helping yourself. You're being cynical about everything. You're saying, and this is not to be confused with constructive criticism, because there's people I've seen that always have something to add, but it's like really smart people. Because I always say, like, don't be the smartest person in the room. So like I talk to anyone that's smarter than me, I try to pick their brain, and they always have something to add. That's not cynicism. I'm not talking about the people that always want to add value. I'm talking about the people that just shut you down. Just, you get to a point where it's just miserable to work with this person. They're just negative all the time. Social issues. So like your friends are even like, God, dude, I don't even want to hang out with this guy. He's just, every time I bring something up, he brings it back the mood down, right? So this is where you start to withdraw from your coworkers. And I see this a lot. People that used to come in, be bubbly, be excited, be happy, all that stuff. And then they're just not coming in anymore. They're like, hey, I got to work from home today. Or they start to like, they're not on the team call. They're being very quiet now. They used to like make jokes. They used to be in there all the time. And now they're kind of just like, whatever. And you just kind of can start to notice the change of mood here a lot. So here you notice it a little bit, but you have to be paying attention, right? Here, you start to notice it quite a bit, because it's now becoming a social issue, not so much their work is declining, but this is more of like they're starting to be just kind of a jerk to be around, right? This is a big one. You frequently procrastinate. So frequent procrastination is something I see a lot, and it's what's happening is they don't want to do anything. So they're just sitting on it. And then their manager or their professor or somebody says, where's this at? And then they're like, great. And they just throw something together. And it's like that's crappy, right? So that's one of the signs that I look for, right? And then drugs and alcohol. This is a little bit drastic. I'll say that because that's usually at this point you're hopping into a different territory. Yes, burnout happens here, but if you're self-medicating, you might have a little bit of a bigger issue, right? So just know if you're to this point, you need to seek professional help. I don't have the advice for you because at that point it might be an addiction. Then stage 4 is burnout. At this point, you feel pessimistic about the future and obsessed with any problems that crop up. So this is where you're now fully burnt out, right? You're done. You're at this point, you're just pessimistic. Nothing matters. It doesn't matter that I fixed a problem, whatever, who cares, right? And you're obsessed with any problems that crop up, meaning the smallest little problem becomes a big problem because now the small little problem is just another cherry on top, right? You're neglecting your personal health, comes with physical problems, chronic headaches. That's a big one you see. Gastrointestinal issues. You see that with stress. You're plagued by self-doubt and look to socially isolate. This is the big one, the self-doubt. You start to see this, especially in entry-level people, when they're really getting burnt out. They just don't have confidence in anything. And it's because they don't have the years of experience of completely proving it time and time again to say, I know I'm good. This is what's going on, right? And you have your habitual burnout. So this is your sense of well-being reaches a low, right? So at this point, you're sad mentally, physically. Depression is now a possibility, meaning burnout is now turning into depression. So you can see burnout kind of happens. Depression is more the long-term if you continue to be habitually burnt out, right? So this is where you're starting to really get to a point of it's not just a situation you're in, right? Because what I've seen is okay, so it's going to get really busy for a couple of months at someone's job or finals is coming up, right? You're going to get burnt out, but you may get burnt out right here in stage 2 and then be finals is over, boom, and you're fine. You knew it was a temporary thing. That can happen, the temporary burnout. Habitual burnout is this is happening so long that you're just finally you just become burnout, right? I'm not going to talk about the causes because we just kind of talked about them, but here's one of the big things to deal with it. Turn to other people. This is where I see so many people struggle, especially at entry level, because they don't want to reach out to their peers. They don't want to reach out to their manager. They don't want to talk to people because they think, I'm just not very good at my job. I'm struggling because I suck or whatever. They start having that self-doubt. And the reality is, I bet if you reached out, I guarantee, especially at an entry level position, if you ask the guy next to you, he'd say, no, dude, I feel the same. Or, dude, I was burnt out last year around this time when I started. And he's like, here's what I did, right? Or if you talk to your manager, he's going to say, oh, I didn't know you felt that way. Let's pull you back some of your responsibilities. And if you have a good manager, right? You need to have social contact. Like I said, you need to talk to people. Sitting behind a computer all day long can be bad. So go into the office every now and then. Talk to people if you can go in the office, right? Because you're going to spend more time with these coworkers than probably your own family, right? That's what work is, right? Unfortunately. But develop friendships with them, right? Be able to vent to them. Be able to talk to them about issues. That's going to help you so much, right? Instead of directing your attention to your smartphone, try engaging. Yeah, get off your phone. Get away from that computer for a bit, especially in IT, right? Get away from that computer. Go outside. Go for a walk on your lunch. Things like that. It may sound silly, and you may go do it one day and go, that didn't help. But do it over a long period of time, and you'll start to see those benefits. Here's a big one. Contact with negative people. This is what I see, especially in cybersecurity, is there's so many negative people in cybersecurity because there's so many people in burnout mode. There's so many people in stress. All right, you need to limit your contact with negative people, right? If you are sitting there and you're working with somebody and they're just negative all the time, keep in mind they may be in a burnout situation as well, but it's a negative feedback loop. If you just keep doing that with each other, you're going to be miserable because you're just going to sit there and be, I'm miserable, you're miserable. Let's just keep making each other miserable, right? One of the big things here is connect with cause or community group. If you're in cybersecurity, this isn't me throwing my Discord out there as an advertisement, but the Discord that I have, there's multiple Discords out there, hundreds of them, thousands of them for cybersecurity. Join them, talk to people, get to know new people, right? You don't have to talk about cyber necessarily, but talk about something. They're like-minded people, right? Just start finding social interactions and forcing them. And I don't mean forcing them like make it weird, like go, hi, do you want to be my friend? Like don't do that stuff. I'm saying normally you would probably retract and go isolate. Don't do that because that makes it really hard. So reframe the way you look at work. This is one of my ways. People ask me, how do you avoid burnout? Like you've been in this industry for so long and you're still grinding. And I am. And it's because I love what I do. How do I do that? This is the number one tip that I can recommend to people is reframe the way you look at it. This takes a long time, right? I don't look at work as I got to go in and I have 50 tickets today, right? Like I don't do tickets, but when I did, like, it's not like I came in, I was like, oh, I got 50 tickets today. God, this day's going to suck. That would be a miserable existence. I looked at it as every time I helped somebody, I looked at the impact I had on that position, right? Like if I patched a vulnerability, things I would do, if I patched a vulnerability, I would go look at how many times we got scanned for that vulnerability the next week. And I'd go, dude, I just saved this company. Sure, you might say that's a bit drastic. I mean, you just patched a server. But look at how many times they scanned for it last week. If I didn't patch it, we just got hacked all them times. And then I'd be like, dude, I just saved this company. And I genuinely believe that. And I do. I really do believe that. Because that is the impact you're having at that company, right? And so when you start to reframe the way you're looking at it as this isn't just a job, I'm actually like doing something here. You start taking ownership in it. You start saying, I see this process and this process I'm doing and it sucks. It's miserable. It's hard to get things done. I revamp that process, take ownership of it and say, dude, I built that, right? Start really, really taking value in that work. Like really own it. Don't just say, yeah, I stood up a project. Like be like, dude, when someone comes in the company and they're like, what do you guys use for this? You're like, dude, I stood that up. That was me. I engineered that. That thing's sick, right? Like do that. That really helps, right? Talk to a professional if you need to. That there's nothing wrong with talking to a professional. In fact, there's actually a lot of courage in it, honestly, right? Because a lot of people are told like, ooh, it's taboo, don't talk to people. Okay, if you have the self-awareness and the balls to say, dude, I need something. I don't know what's going on, but something ain't right. That's courageous. That's the best thing you can do. Why would you? It's kind of like you going to lift like a tree that had fallen in the woods or something, and it's like heavy as shit. And you see those guys who are like, oh no, I got it, dude. And you're like, does that make them? And then they like blow their back out, or you see them 20 years later and they can't walk, and you're like, sick, I guess. You got that. You could lift a lot then. Like it's like bodybuilders. Like nothing against bodybuilding, but like. Do you see, is there anything different? Do you see that person differently if they were like, hey, bro, this tree's like 400 pounds. Will you grab that side? And you're like, yeah. Are you like, dude, what a pussy? Like, no, I would never think that. I'd be like, yeah, obviously I'll help you lift the heavy ass shit. Same thing with mental health. You're dealing with the heavy stuff. You're dealing with a lot of stuff. Why would I not go get help? Like, that's insane. So take time off. I see this a lot. People start getting really busy and they are like, well, I'd take this time off, but man, we're so busy right now. Like, rely on your team. That's where you get the social interaction. If you guys have a good friendship and your coworkers and you have a team effort, rely on each other. Say, hey, dude, I'm getting a little burnout. Do you mind if I take next week off? I'll make it up to you on the back end somewhere. We'll help each other out, whatever. I need a break. I'm sure your team would be like, yeah, dude, go out, get out of here. You know what I mean? Let's grab a drink after work and head out, right? Like, whatever. Reevaluate your priorities. This is a big one. This is what I was talking about. Reevaluate right now as an entry level. Decide if this is the career for you, because it's not a bad thing to say, it's not really me right now, right? Right here. What are your goals, dreams, hopes? Don't neglect something important to you. If the only reason you're in this career field is money or prestige or infamy or whatever, is that really what you want to kill yourself for that? Because that's really where you're at, right? Set boundaries is a big one, right? Set boundaries, not just with yourself, but with your professors, with your boss, right? Say no. Don't say it that way. But if your boss says, hey, I need this done, can you get it to me by Friday? No, I'm a little overworked right now. I'm doing my best. I won't be able to get to it by Friday. Can I have till Monday? And he'll probably say, yeah, cool, right? That's it. Take daily break from technology. So we're back to, what do I do? One of the things I do is I set aside at least one day a week where I have no technology. I won't have my phone, internet, nothing. And I'll just be outside all day. It forces you'll realize I do puzzles. Sounds stupid, but I do puzzles. I do board games, whatever. It forces you to do something different and use your brain in a different way. It stops that dopamine rush of like, oh, text message, oh, whatever. Do stuff like that. Take a break from technology, right? You have to be creative. Creativity is not something that is just, yes, some people are more naturally inclined, but I see people who say like, I'm not creative. And then you're watching them do something like a video game or something. And they're like, I don't know if you guys watch Call of Duty, but like Shotzi's a good example of, he's a Call of Duty player that like his movement is like insane. He's all over the place, right? I bet you if you asked him if he's creative, he'd probably be like, nah, I'm not creative, dog. Like I don't draw and stuff. But he's the only player that moves like that. That's creativity. He's doing something differently and thinking in a different way than everybody else. Creativity comes in a lot of forms. I don't think people realize that. So look for your form, right? Relaxation. You need to relax. I will tell you, yoga, I absolutely love yoga. I love it, dude. It helps me so much with my flexibility, and I'm not flexible at all, but I get very, very tight, and yoga helps. Getting sleep. I see this as a big problem a lot. People, especially in IT, will go work. They'll work all day. They'll whatever. Then they are like, let me play video games all night. And then they're like getting no sleep. They're living on energy drinks. Like, and I drink energy drinks. I get it, but I don't live on them. Like I go to sleep and I get the same amount of sleep. I go to sleep at the same time every day, wake up same time, right? I'm luckily one of those people that I don't need a lot of sleep, but it's just nice that, you know, if you get into these routines, it's so much easier, right? Now we're going to talk about make exercise a priority. I already talked about that, right? Healthy diet. I talked about that. Now, what I'm going to talk about is some of the ways that you can, those are some of the ways that I mitigate, right? I do a lot of these things that they're talking about, but one thing that I do a lot is I set not goals, but daily things for myself. So you guys can't see it obviously, but over here I have a board, and on that board is all the stuff I need to do for different things. I have it for my work, for my Patreon, for my YouTube, for personal goals, like whatever. And those are my checklists of what I need to do, right? And then I come in every day and I get ready. I come into work early, and some of you may say this, I know it sounds a little crazy sometimes, but some of you may say, why would you go in early? Like, because that's the mentality I have compared to others. People want to say, how do you stay successful and not burn out? I don't go into work early because I'm trying to get ahead. I go into work early because I want to be at work early, because I'm excited to be there, and because it helps me, right? If I didn't go into work early, my day would be way more stressful. And people say, well, that doesn't make any sense. I come into work early. I sit down, I get organized, right? As I'm getting organized, I'm got my notepad because I'm a physical note taker. I have my notepad. I start writing notes, a checklist of what I'm going to do today. I look at my meetings. I get ready for them. I prep. I start planning my day out. My day is now planned, and now I'm ready for the day. Could I do that the first hour of my day? Sure. But I like to do it before anybody's there. Nobody bothers me. I don't have anyone to talk to. It gives me time to it's my time. And so I want to be there. And people don't realize, when I say I'm passionate about cybersecurity, people don't realize that that's not me saying it for like you to be like, oh, wow, that's crazy. Or like, you know, wow, that must be impressive, or like whatever. It's just what I love. So like me doing that helps me get better for the day. Now, it may be counterintuitive to some people because they're like, well, that just means you're working more time. Correct. But that extra time helps me get through my normal time. So for me, it actually is, yeah, I work more hours because I enjoy it, but also because it makes me less stressed during my hours. So look at what works for you. That's the very most important thing, is find what works for you. So one of the things I have here is, I'm going to put this in the comments below, or in the description below. And I know this is a long video, but just know, please watch the whole thing. The main reason I'm doing this is because I think this is so vital. And I think stress relief and all that stuff is something that people just don't talk about enough. And I know it's talked about a lot, but so some effective stress management techniques. So I will tell you, I don't know what some of these are. I don't know what guided imagery is. I don't know if it tells you. Yeah, try guided imagery. Taking a short vacation in your mind. I have no idea what that is. You can look at it if you want. I'm just going to talk about the ones I've done in the past and how they've helped. Meditation, I've tried it. Wasn't really my thing. If it helps you, by all means, please do it. Progressive muscle relaxation. I don't know what that is. Let's see what it is. Relaxing all the muscles in your body, group by group. Okay, I don't know what that is. Never done it. Maybe it works. If it works for you, great. Deep breathing. I've tried it. Not really my thing. Could work. Going for a walk. That does help me. I do go for a walk. Being outside helps me. I try to go outside every day for at least an hour, and do something, right? Cut firewood or whatever. But going for a walk helps me. So that is something I do, right? Hugs. I don't really know if that would help me. I've never been like, I really need a hug or whatever, maybe. But aromatherapy, never tried it really. Creativity, that helps me a lot. Working on my own personal projects, or cyber projects that I do, or scripts and things like that, those help me because those are my stress relief. Those are my creativity. That's me able to do things that I would just want to do. Maybe I have a lot of scripts that I've never finished because it's just like, I'm just doing them to de-stress. I'm just working on stuff. And then I'm like, I really don't care about that tool, like whatever. So those are the things, like, it's kind of like taking notes when you're in a class or something and then never going back to them. It just helps me during the process. Healthy diet. This is something that I notice tremendously. If I don't eat good, and I'm not like the healthiest person in the world, but if I don't eat healthy, I struggle a lot of times. I've never taken any stress relief supplements. Leisure activities, that's, whatever you want to do, I guess. But I take, I play like Call of Duty and stuff like that. So video games helps me at times, but I tried not to stay on the computer for too long, right? So if I'm playing a game or something, I'm counting that as my computer time, right? So like, I'm not just going to stare at a screen all day. Positive self-talk. This is something I've never like just sat there and positively like self-talk to myself, but this is something years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I really struggled it with, and what it was basically I would get frustrated with people, and this goes a little deeper into some of my stuff, but I would get frustrated with people, and one of the ways I found the solution was every day I had to consciously tell myself certain things, right? And it sounds silly, but you get to a point where, like, even if the worst thing happened, I would consciously be like, let's find the good in this, and I would find it. And is the good always like that good? Not really. But now, like, if anything happens, I'm usually like, yeah, there's some good in it. I don't really care, like I'm very hard to get frustrated now, and it helped a lot, right? Yoga, like I said, I did yoga for a long time. I actually need to do yoga again more. And I really, really liked it. I was surprised I liked it. I'll say that. I didn't think I'd like it, and I loved it. Gratitude. I'm very thankful. I will say that. If I go to a family member's house and they make me dinner or something, absolutely 100% thank you so much every time. And every time they're like, you don't have to thank us, like, 100% I'm going to, always. Like, I'm very thankful. Exercise, already talked about it. Evaluating priorities, talked about it. Social support, talked about it. And then eliminating stressors. The more stressors you have in your home, the harder it's going to be. So like my desk, I try to keep it clean. When it starts getting cluttered, I can feel myself getting a little stressed. I try to clear it out. My office, I try to keep it clean. Those are things like you can eliminate those stressors very easily. The other thing I want to talk about is time management. This is where I see a lot of people struggle. So I'll put this in here as well. if you have better time management, it's easier to not be stressed by things. So you can see here's the 80-20 rule. It's the idea that 20% of actions are responsible for 80% of outcomes, So how it works, list some of the problems you're facing. Maybe your grades are slipping, identify the root cause. You spend too much time on social media, okay? Assign a score to each problem, blah, blah. And they give you the different methods for all of these time management techniques. And I will tell you, it works because there is a way for everybody to manage their time, and it's not the same for everybody. You can't just do what I do. You can't just come in and plan your day and say it's going to work great, because it doesn't work that way for everybody. So understand it doesn't work that way for everybody and work on it. And that's what I do. And so luckily I have a very good process for myself. I can't do it for you, right? So if you start doing all of this now as an entry-level person, when you get to those mid and senior level tiers, you have such a foundation that like someone's going to throw a bunch of stress at you and you're going to be like, I'll figure it out. And then you'll deal with it then. And then you'll go up to the next tier and it'll be like really stressful. But you're like, okay, I can deal with it, right? But if you don't address the issues now, what'll happen is you'll get to another tier, make a mid-level tier, and you're feeling more pressure and you're going to realize, oh crap, it's just going to keep getting worse and I am screwed. And then you'll feel that you'll be in that cyclical mentality of like, just keep doing the same crap and feeling crappy. So hopefully this helps you guys. Hopefully you guys learn something. And also hopefully you guys realize it's okay to talk about this crap. Like we all burn out. We all have problems, but how do I deal with it? These are some of the methods I genuinely do. I constantly do a lot of these. And so go through it. Think about it, decide what's best for you. Put in the comments, please, what do you do? Because we can help each other out, right? If you do something that I don't do, maybe I'll try it. And if it works, awesome, So let me know what you guys think, and hopefully this helps you guys. Thanks.